Hi everyone, welcome back to another Diablo Immortal video. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at another one of the new Necromancer Essences that I've just got hold of, Death Disseminates. So this is another one of the newest Necromancer Essences to come in the game, and it's another one of the Mark Essences similar to Fateful Frame, and it's for Grim Scythe. Now you can equip this in either of your two weapon slots for your Essences. So we're going to have a quick play around with this, take a look, just a quick overview, see what it's all about. Let's take a read of it first. So, Grim Scythe now targets an enemy and hurls a scythe that applies the Reaper's Mark, which triggers a sweeping scythe when the target takes damage. Grim Scythe damage is increased by 18%. So this is the essence, and if you have it in a slot which is awakened, you get another 10% increased damage for Grim Scythe. So let's go ahead and equip it. This is the one. Death Disseminates. So, as I said, it's another essence that we've got that marks the enemy. So, it's interesting that they're introducing a lot more of these marking essences for Necromancer in the game. And this one's cool because, as it says, it applies that mark, and then the mark actually doesn't get triggered until the target takes damage. As soon as that target takes damage, you're going to get these sweeping scythes that will deal more damage to the enemy. So, let's read the skills tab just to see if there's any more information about this essence that's sort of hidden away. Here we go, there's quite a lot of text here actually. So, Reaper's Mark. Grim Scythe now targets an enemy and hurls a scythe that applies a Reaper Mark for 6 seconds. Okay, so that you got 6 seconds to attack the enemy. If an enemy with the Reaper's Mark is damaged, they will unleash a sweeping scythe that deals 18,638 damage to nearby enemies. Your summons prioritize attacking the enemies with the Reaper's Mark. That's interesting. And if an enemy dies with an active mark, it will move to the nearest enemy and apply a new mark to them. Grim Scythe damage increased by 18%. So there you go, there's a lot more information about this essence in the skills tab. A lot more than I realised. So we learned a few more things there. So if the enemies are damaged, they will unleash the sweeping scythe that deals damage to nearby enemies. That's pretty cool. So this is a nice one to use along with Fateful Frame, which does the explosion. It's quite interesting that it says your summons prioritize attacking enemies with the Reaper's Mark. So they'll know which enemies have the mark and then go for them first. So then you get the sweeping scythes and they deal more damage to surrounding enemies. This sounds like quite a nice one to use when you've got a whole group of enemies like sort of like terror rifts and challenge rifts and tower and stuff like that. That's quite cool. And it also says if the enemy dies with an active mark, it will move to the nearest enemy, apply a new Reaper's Mark to them. So that's a brief overview of the essence and what it does. We've got a lot more information there. Let's just have a play around and take a look at it. Okay, as always, what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to remove all of my legendary gems, just so there's less going on screen, less variables, less things messing around. We just want to have a look and play around with the essence itself. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of my gems. Okay, so to begin with, when you hold down Grim Scythe with this new essence, you get this large area in this blue circle. This is the area you've got to throw this mark and apply it on an enemy. So it's quite nice because this is a really large range. I mean, you don't have to be too close to apply this, and you've got this line which you can use to fire the essence basically. So this is really good because, you know, in stuff like challenge rifts, you can stay back, stay safe, try not to take damage, and you can fire this mark from a distance to apply the mark and deal damage to surrounding enemies. So this is the area you've got when you hold down the skill. Now when you let go, it's going to apply this mark on your target, and when you attack that target, you can see each time you attack the target, you get this slashing scythe that deals damage on that enemy and nearby enemies, which is pretty cool. Now, I did notice there is a bit of a problem here with a training dummy. If you have a look on that top bar, I can't see anything indicating that there is a Reaper's Mark. Now, what I found is if you apply the mark, walk away, come back to the training dummy, then you can see Reaper's Mark there. Attacking target with Reaper's Mark will cause a scythe to sweep the area, and you've got the countdown of how many seconds. So that seems to be a bug with the training dummy area. So for example, if I cast it now, it's definitely applied because you can see the spinning scythe, but it doesn't show me at the top of the training dummy here. You have to move away and then come back to the training dummy. So for example here, move away, come back, and then the Reaper's Mark is shown. So a bit of a bug with the training dummy there, just to be aware of. If you don't see that being applied, you need to walk away from the training dummy and then go back again just to confirm for yourself that you have applied that mark. But this is basically what the essence looks like. You fire that scythe in a distance. If you fire it anywhere where there's no target, it does say no target. So it does need to be where there is a target. So for example, let's target and then attack again. And basically it's not a continuous swipe. It's basically each time you attack, you're going to get that slashing scythe. So let's try again. This time I'm going to do a continuous attack. So there we go, apply the mark, and then from a distance I'm doing my primary attack, and along with the primary attack you've got the slashing scythes that are dealing damage as well. So that's really, really cool. You've just got additional damage by keeping your distance. Now let's get the summon up. Let's get a golem up. Apply the mark again, just to make sure the golem triggers that mark. So that's good. So the golem is attacking the training dummy, which is applying the scythe, the spinning scythes on the training dummy. So I'm glad that's working together. And once again, if we walk away and then come back, you can see the Reaper's Mark there, and you've got the countdown for how long it's got until that mark wears off. And you can click it again, and let me just walk back and come back in again. See if the Reaper's Mark is really not. Yeah, there we go. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. I just want to see if that timer refreshes. 9 seconds. Yeah. So when you reapply the mark, it does refresh the timer as well. So if I go back, it's gone back to 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Let's go back and then come back again, and it's gone back up to 9 seconds. So you don't have to wait for the timer to go all the way to 0 before being able to reapply the mark again. You can basically keep reapplying the mark and have it continuous, which is quite nice. So if I'm attacking here, I can go hurl that scythe again at the enemy and then just keep on attacking. So that's basically what this essence looks like. It's fairly easy to understand, and it's fairly easy to apply. You can do it from a distance, which is really good. And we're just going to make sure that you can also do it on the boss dummy as well. So let me go to the boss dummy. Same again, I'm going to apply the mark, attack, and let's see if it's bugged on the boss dummies. Go away and then come back. Yeah, it's the same again. It's bugged on the boss dummy. The Reaper's Mark doesn't actually show up on the enemy until you walk away and then come back. But let's just apply the mark and attack. There we go. So this new essence is applicable on normal enemies as well as boss enemies. And for example, let's get the golem up and just make sure, there we go, the golem is attacking the boss, and the golem's attack is triggering that mark and then triggering that essence. Let's try with some other summons as well, just to make sure. Let's try with command skeletons. Okay, so I've got command skeletons equipped. Let's try with skeletons. So fire the mark, and let's see what the skeletons do. There we go. So the skeletons are attacking the training dummy, and that's triggering the mark at the top here, Reaper's Mark, and that's applying the spinning scythe as well. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so it definitely works with the skeletons. Let's now try with mages. So let's go and swap out the skeletons with skeletal mages and double check. So when you get the mages up, and I'm going to apply the scythe mark. There we go. So I'm not doing anything, and obviously the mages are attacking in a lot quicker succession here, which is applying that spinning scythe a lot faster as well, which is really cool. And this is going to be great if you have, for example, the 6 mages up at the same time with your command golem. That's going to be pretty fun, just to see the scythe. It's going to be just a continuous additional damage on the enemy with that scythe. So we've confirmed that the new essence works with the mages, the skeletons, and the golem, and we've had a good idea to see what the new essence actually does, and we've confirmed that it works on normal enemies as well as bosses. And we've also seen that you get that minor bug where you have to walk away and come back to see the actual Reaper's Mark being applied on the training dummy. Okay, let's go to Wortham and just have a quick double check with some normal enemies. Okay, we're in Wortham. I just want to have a quick check with this essence on just some normal enemies, just to make sure it applies okay. So let's go over here. Let's cast the mark. So obviously you can only cast it on one enemy, but as you saw, it dealt that spinning scythe damage to nearby enemies. So all I did is the one primary attack, and that's interesting. So yeah, it did the continuous scythe. Let me just attack this again. That must have been something else that triggered the continuous scythe there. There we go, it's doing it again. Maybe that's something else which is triggering more than one spinning scythe there. Okay, oh, we've got more enemies here, this is good. Attack. I am renewed. And there we go. Each time I attack the enemy, it's dealing that slashing scythe, and that's also dealing damage to nearby enemies as well. So yeah, it's like a really, really good essence to have, especially when you've got lots of enemies. And I died there just because I've got all of my gems unequipped. But yeah, just to see how it works, I just wanted to have a quick test with these normal enemies here. So once again, I've got no legendary gems equipped, just so I don't get any other extra variables that are going to get in the way here. Let's try one more time here. Nice. So yeah, that's a good example of how the essence works. You can see each time I attack, you get the spinning scythe. Now let me just double check with the mages here. So I'm just going to cast the mark, and it's saying that was a bit weird. I mean, it's saying that the summons are going to prioritize attacking the enemy which has the mark. Oh, it did that time. It didn't the first time. My mage was just firing those fireballs everywhere. Okay, that was interesting. Maybe I was in the wrong spot there and the mage couldn't actually find the target properly. But that's better. See, as you can see, the mage was definitely attacking the enemy which had the mark. Nice. Okay, so that was a good enough example for me, just to see it working on normal enemies. Okay, we're back at the training dummy. I have got all of my legendary gems equipped again, and I've got my Corpse Lance, Grim Scythe, Command Golem, damage over time, burst build back on for Necromancer. What we're going to do now is, I'm going to see how the new essence compares to if I was to remove Reaper's Calling. So the essences I've got at the moment are Armour of the Damned, Studied Menace, Incision Cusp, Ravening Silence, Departed Appetite, where I've got the Vortex of Bones, Reaper's Calling, Molten Golem, and Corrosive Slab. So we're going to swap out Reaper's Calling with the new essence and test. But to begin with, let's just do a quick 1 minute check with this current build and just see what damage I get. I mean, I have got Phoenix Ashes still on, which is not an offensive gem, which I could replace, but I'm just going to try this with that equipped. I'll have a look at the legendary gems after this. Let me just attack this dummy for 1 minute, just to see what we get. Now obviously for this build, I need to be a bit closer to the enemy, because I've got Grim Scythe doing the spinning scythes, and I've got Corpse Lance doing the Vortex of Bones, so I can't be too far away. Whilst with the new essence, you can stay back a lot more, which means you have to swap out some essences which stick to doing range damage. Although you can obviously apply it and stay close and use the new essence as well. You don't have to stay further away with the new essence, but you have got the option to. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. So we have 145 million. You've got the damage per second there. You've got 2412. So now I'm going to only swap out Defiling Swarm, which is the Reaper's Calling that conjures Whirling Scythes, and let's try the new essence. So let's see what would happen if we were to swap out Reaper's Calling with Reaper's Mark. There we go. And yeah, my legendary gems, I've got Rolling Consequence, so that's going to do the burn damage. I've got Bloodsoaked Jade, Phoenix Ashes, that's my defensive gem, so obviously this can be swapped out with something like Pain Clasp or any other damage over time. Gloom Cask, I've got Chip of Stone Flesh with Storm Vault as an Orcs here. Starfire Shard, I've got Viper's Bite, and I've got Morn Skull as well. So they're just the gems that I'm going in with for this test, and obviously swap that out for anything that you've got which is better suited for this build, or anything which you have which is better basically and deals the most damage. Oh, just to take a look at the set items in case anyone's curious, I've got Feasting Baron's Pack, which increases the duration of those harmful effects by 30%. Then I have increased the duration of all my beneficial effects on me or my party members by 30%. And then I've got 4 pieces of Agment, so I get the Ignite status, and then there's a 15% chance of attaching that Ignite status and dealing more damage over time. Let's try it again. We've got 145 million to beat. Let's see how we get on. So 1, 2, 3. I don't know why I said 1, 2, 3 instead of 3, 2, 1 there, but never mind. So you can see the slashing scythe being applied on the training dummy now. And then each of my primary attacks are just continuing those slashing scythes. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just basically getting additional damage to what I used to. Now it's going to be interesting to see if that does more damage than the whirling scythes that I had from Grim Scythe previously, from the Defiling Swarm Essence. Let's see if there's a big difference. Actually, there is a big difference. So I've already surpassed 145 million. That's pretty cool. That was quite quick, and we've still got another 10 seconds to go before we get to the 1 minute mark. I'm not going to use my ultimate as well, because that's going to add more variables. And there we go, pause. So there we go, 221 million and way more damage per second as well. So that's a clear winner for this test. So if you are using that Corpse Lance Grim Scythe build from before, you can ditch that previous essence where you've got the Whirling Scythes. Just get rid of that one for the Grim Scythes. So that's the Defiling Swarm one. You can attach this new essence. So 221 million total damage. Before we had 145 million total damage, and if I remember, the previous number was 2412 for the damage per second. We got 3675 this time, and yeah, a clear winner. Have a look at the breakdown. Interesting. Corpse Lance doing quite a lot there. Grim Scythe having 8.9%. Okay, so once again, that confirms that if you are using Defiling Swarm for your build with this Corpse Lance and Grim Scythe sort of combo, go ahead and swap out Defiling Swarm and stick with the new Death Disseminates essence, which is the Reaper's Mark. Go ahead and use that one instead. So I'm going to go ahead and save that on this build, because yeah, that was a clear winner, a definite increase in damage with the new essence, which is great. And obviously with all of your gems equipped, you're going to get the additional benefits as well when you are using this essence. So that's really cool. Now, the other thing is, we had another new essence come out, which I already did a video on, called Fateful Frame, which is the head essence. Now, the good thing is, this new Reaper's Mark essence works along with the new head essence, because obviously it's in a different slot. Now let's confirm that by removing Studied Menace and equipping Fateful Frame. So this is one where Grim Scythe also marks enemies for 6 seconds. If a marked enemy is attacked 5 times, the mark explodes and deals 20,129 damage to nearby enemies. And you get an additional damage for Grim Scythe. Now, what's going to happen here is, you've got the additional 90% and the 10% increased damage from Grim Scythe added to when you're using Reaper's Mark. So overall, you're going to get a massive boost with Grim Scythe damage here. Let's double check the skills tab to make sure these two both work together. Just to show at the top, it's a control and dash skill. We've got Reaper's Mark there, which is the one that we've been testing. So that's definitely active. If we scroll down a bit further, we've got Grim Scythe now triggers continual damage on the target it hits. And we have the new Fateful Frame essence as well. Grim Scythe also marks the enemies for 6 seconds. If a marked enemy is attacked 5 times, the mark explodes and deals 20,129 damage. So all three of these essences are now working together, giving you a massive boost in Grim Scythe damage overall. So the new Necromancer Essences have made Grim Scythe way better than it used to be and given it a massive boost of damage. So let's now have a test with both of these two essences together. So we've got the new Fateful Frame essence, we've got the new Death Disseminates essence, and we have Ravening Silence on our leg slots. So I've got the numbers on screen from the previous test, which was 221 million total damage. Let's see what we get this time round. So I'm going to reset and we're going to go again for 10 seconds, this time with all three of the Grim Scythe essences together. So here we go. So obviously I'm going to get the marking skills for head essence and the weapons together, which means I'm going to get the slashing scythes and I'm going to get the explosion as well, because both need attacks within the 6 seconds and I'm dealing more than enough attacks within those 6 seconds. Obviously I have to be a bit closer because I've got the corpse lance doing the whirling bones, so it means I can't stay too far away for this one, which is fine. We need the corpse lance bones though, because it's just dealing that really fast damage, which we need within those 6 seconds to trigger the mark. There we go, and I'm going to pause there, slightly over the 1 minute unfortunately, but that's really interesting. We got 192 million, which wasn't as much damage as we got when we had the other essence. So that's quite interesting, and the damage per second is less as well. Okay, so that's really interesting. You know what, I'm going to do that one more time just to double check, because yeah, that wasn't as much damage as when we had the corpse lance doing the decay. So let's reset and do one more test. I'm really curious about this. I'm going to do it one more time just to see if we get consistent numbers here. We're going to go one more time just for 1 minute. This is using both of the new Necromancer head essences for Grim Scythe. Okay, we're just over halfway in. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get as much damage as we had before. Okay, just 5 more seconds. That was much better than last time, but not quite as good as what we had before. This time we've got 202 million and 3361971 for the damage per second, and before we had 192 million on the first test, and then 3141765 damage per second. So let's put Studied Menace back on. So we've got Studied Menace, where Corpse Lance is causing enemies to decay, and we've got Reaper's Mark and Ravening Silence. Let's see if we get a clear difference there, and if this can get above, say, 200 million within that 1 minute. Here we go. So this should be interesting. Okay, I accidentally told my Golem to jump behind me there. Okay, the Golem's back. Okay, we're nearly there. Okay, that wasn't as high as the 221 million I somehow managed to get last time. Okay, that was really interesting. So yeah, 208 million, which is more than the last two tests that we did, but not that much higher. So having Studied Menace back on over Fateful Frame, twice I got higher damage compared to the last two times I tested with Fateful Frame on. Let me try one more time. So obviously I've got 208 million and 3469806 damage per second. Okay, just one more time. Really interested to see what I get this time. Yeah, I don't know how I managed to get the 221 million. Maybe just I had a really lucky burst with the continual damage. Okay, not too long to go now. Okay, 10 more seconds. Let's see how much more damage we can deal. $212. Interesting. Yeah, that was higher again. Now I'm going to go back to Fateful Frame just to double check now. So yeah, that's 212 million, and then 3530, 237 for the damage per second. Okay, one last test. So I'm going to remove Studied Menace and then put Fateful Frame back on. Okay, so let's try again. One last time. I want to see if there's a clear difference here. So we're kind of looking to get around 208, 212 million. If we can't get that far, then Studied Menace is definitely better. In this situation anyway. There is a bug with Fateful Frame at the moment where other people attacking is kind of triggering that essence. But I'm sure that's going to be fixed at some point. So I don't want to talk about that too much because it'll probably be fixed soon. 10 seconds to go. Not getting as much damage as we'd hoped. Wow. Okay, even though I went 1 second higher than the minute, I still wasn't able to get up to the 200. So this is consistent with the first test that we did with Fateful Frame, where we had 192 million. And then we had 202 million after that. This is kind of in line, 194 million. So for this particular build, I would say that Fateful Frame is not as good as Studied Menace. So I'm going to be going back to sticking with Studied Menace for the head essence in this particular instance, because with that training dummy test I was definitely getting less damage. Now this is going to be obviously different when you have a group of people, and as I said, at the moment when you cast the Fateful Frame essence, I think what's happening, there's some sort of bug where when other people are attacking, it's triggering that mark as well, so you're getting a lot more damage. But I don't want to talk about that too much because obviously that might get fixed soon. What we've seen with this particular test in this moment is Fateful Frame with the new Death Disseminates essence is not as good as if you have Death Disseminates and Studied Menace. So I'm going to stick to Studied Menace for the helm, Death Disseminates for the weapon slot, because we've seen that it's definitely better than the whirling Grim Scythe. Reaper's Mark is definitely better, and then we stick to Ravening Silence. Okay, and going back to the Death Disseminates essence, remember that if you do equip another Grim Scythe essence on your second weapon slot, just be careful that you can't have two of these together and they're going to cancel each other out. So for example, let's just go with Thrash Jaw, for example, where Grim Scythe now hurls the scythe in a direction, striking enemies. So if we equip that with Reaper's Mark, make sure you go and read the skills tab and check what's actually active. We've got Reaper's Mark, we've got Grim Scythe now triggers all continual damage, and that is it. We don't have Thrash Jaw also equipped as well. And same again if you were to equip the Whirling Scythe. If we go to Defiling Swarm, for example, if you now do Grim Scythe, you're not going to get the Whirling Scythe around you. So yeah, just remember about that, for mostly for newer players, just to be careful, read your skills tab here and just double check what is actually applied, just to make sure you haven't got two Grim Scythe essences equipped on your weapon slot so they're both cancelled out. Make sure you've got the right one that you want to have active there. So having a look at other Grim Scythe essences which you could potentially use instead of Reaper's Mark, you have Thrash Jaw, where Grim Scythe now hurls the scythe in a direction, striking enemies with its path in continuous damage. Obviously that's more useful if you've got a load of enemies in front of you, because it's going to deal damage to all of the enemies, but it's not going to deal any slashing scythes or any continual damage on the actual enemy at the end. It's just the enemies in the path. Then you have Grave Cutter, where Grim Scythe now slices enemies in front of you several times. That applies a bleed effect, so if you do want a continuous bleed effect, you can go with that, but I think it's just better to stick with this new Reaper's Mark essence. We also have Craving Bay. Now Craving Bay is one that I use quite a lot as well, so I think we'll do a quick test with Craving Bay. We have Defiling Swarm. We've already done the test with Defiling Swarm and confirmed that the new Death Disseminates essence is better than Defiling Swarm. You've got Exquisite Corpse you could pick from as well. Grim Scythe now releases a Blast of Reaping Wind, dealing damage and generating corpses. Not quite as good, so I wouldn't recommend that one. And that is it. So I think what would be worth doing now to end the video is let's have a quick test with Craving Bay. So this is where Grim Scythe now empowers you with Grim Calling, causing your primary attacks to unleash slashing scythes when they hit enemies. And we're going to do one 1 minute test with Reaper's Mark, and then I'm going to swap this out to Craving Bay. Okay, so I'm just going to apply the mark and just do primary attack damage. I'm not going to do any of the other skills just to avoid some extra variables. We're going to keep this nice and simple just so we can get a clear before and after difference here, because I'm interested to see how much difference the slashing scythes do with Craving Bay compared to Death Disseminates. So just halfway there now. And both of the essences that we're going to test with, you can use from a distance. You don't have to be close up. Ten more seconds to go. Okay, so I'm going to pause out there. 8.7 million and 144,373 damage per second. Okay, so now we go ahead and swap out Reaper's Mark with Craving Bay. And Craving Bay is one that I actually like to use in challenge rifts as well. I actually have this on my challenge rift build. It just makes it easy for me to actually stand back, do Grim Scythe and my primary attack, and then have those slashing scythes. But it'll be interesting to see how that compares against Reaper's Mark. This is Reaper's Mark versus Grim Calling, just with primary attacks and nothing else, just to avoid additional variables going on. So we're looking to beat 8.7 million if we can. Here we go. So you can see that there's these slashing scythes that happen around the enemy. Slightly different animation to the Reaper's Mark one. And above my own character head, I have these double scythe symbols, which is pretty cool. I like seeing that. That lets you know that the essence is actually active. Okay, we're just over halfway. Need to be 8.7 million. And we've got 9 seconds to go. Doesn't look like it's gonna... Oh, actually, no, it's close. Wow, that was... Okay, I wonder if they're like kind of on par. The damage per second is also on par as well. That's really interesting. Because I got total damage of 8.6 million there. Before I got 8.7 million. Before I got a damage per second of 144,373. And now I've got 144,117. So they're pretty much on par, to be honest. That's really, really interesting. So if we have a look at the skills tab. So this is where Grim Scythe now empowers you with Grim Calling for 5 seconds. While empowered, your primary attacks unleash slashing scythes when it hits an enemy, dealing 12,699 damage to nearby enemies and generating a corpse. So the benefit here is you get an extra corpse as well. So you get the corpse here, and your primary attacks deal 12,699 damage to nearby enemies. Now let's double check and compare with the new essence, Death Disseminates. Go back to the skills tab. So here we've got 10,375 damage, so that's less damage than Craving Bay, because that did 12,699 damage. This does 10,375 damage, but you do not get a corpse here. The benefit here is this isn't only triggered with your primary attacks, but your summons also trigger that sweeping scythe as well. So if you got summons, they're going to help trigger that scythe. And the other good thing here is this Reaper's Mark moves to the nearest enemy and applies a new mark to them. So this one's better for multiple enemies, I think, because that mark will spread across multiple enemies and then deal the damage across quite a few enemies, whilst the other essence we were looking at, Craving Bay, only works with your primary attack. It will generate corpses if you need for your corpse lance, and it's probably better if you've got the single target like a boss. So it's interesting to see that Craving Bay and Death Disseminates aren't that far apart, and then, you know, in terms of damage they were fairly close there. So yeah, that's worth also keeping in mind. And yeah, that's basically it as an overview of the new essence and the type of builds that you can actually use it for as well. Like for example, I've got another build which I use in challenge rifts, where I've got Grim Scythe now slices through the enemy's armor. I've got Armor of the Damned. I've got Skeletal Mages, charges increase. Bone Armor increases critical hit chance. Spectral Mage does the untargetable mages. I've got Command Golem, that's making nearby enemies vulnerable. I've got a Devouring Golem. And that's where I've also got Grim Calling, which causes your primary attacks to unleash the slashing scythes, which we've just seen. And for example, in that build, I could use Death Disseminates instead, which will be a lot more useful in challenge rifts because of the amount of enemies that you have. And that's pretty much it for this video, just to show what this new Death Disseminates essence is all about and how it works. And it was definitely a win from all of the testing that I performed as well, and just seeing it work in action. It's a brilliant essence, and it's nice that you can use it from a distance as well. And it's great that this goes on to additional targets, and that summons also trigger this essence as well. So it's one that I will be using in my build and making use of, and the damage was decent as well. So a fantastic Necromancer essence to come into the game, especially if you're used to using Grim Scythe and use it in your build. So yeah, hope you enjoyed watching that one. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything which I kind of missed out, or something which I wasn't aware of, or any other tips you have for this essence, combining it with anything else. Like I said, you could go on for a really long time testing this with all of the different permutations, but I wanted to sort of focus on a few areas for this video. So thanks a lot for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.